finally. Some good fucking food. Wow.
Atelier Resleriana, the Red Alchemist and the White Guardian, is finally here, and not only does it receive my personal award for worst game title in the series, right alongside Atelier Resleriana, Forgotten Alchemy, and the Polar Knight Liberator, try saying that 5 times fast, it's actually a pretty good game, which is a relief since the last 3 games were massive disappointments for me. If you liked any of them, that's all well and fine, you're entitled to your opinion, but I've personally been holding out hope for Red White to bring the series back to what it's really good at. After playing through a hefty chunk of it, I'm pleased to say, yep, it did just that. Thank you very much. Instead of trying to stretch the core concept of the series with larger scope and watering down what makes them fun and unique, it has a tighter focus, satisfying progression on a small scale, straightforward combat, and a solid, familiar gameplay loop, which is simultaneously uplifting and concerning. Because while this game is good, and I do recommend it, it's also just very, very weird. Okay, so despite it kind of being a new mainline game, it's kind of the such. It's actually closer to a spin-off of the gacha game Atelier Resleriana and the name that's way too long, I think, which is a game you can't even play outside of Japan anymore because they shut off the global servers not too long after its worldwide launch. According to interviews, the development started slightly before Resna's release, but it didn't start in earnest until half a year later, which, according to my math, means it had about a year of full-on development. Not unusual for an Atelier game, and they probably saved time reusing assets from the gacha, but by that same coin, part of the promotion for the gacha was bringing back a bunch of characters from previous games, a tactic that only really works for established fans of a franchise. So this new game is a rework of assets from a game that's largely unavailable to most of the world, and following the formula last used in Atelier Sophie 2, and still using a cast largely composed of characters from old games. This game is niche, on top of specific, on top of narrow, which is great news for fans, but if you aren't a fan, it might be a bit of a hard sell. But hey, this will be a simple review for a simpler game with a simpler conclusion, so, let's get into it. In Atelier Red White, you get to pick your starting protagonist from our 2 main characters, Rias and Slade. Deathstroke's looking a lot different these days. For my time playing, I picked Rias because I like her hat. It's just a nice hat. She starts off running in terror from a giant pony in the midst of mysterious ruins she wasn't even supposed to visit, and decides to follow through by seeing what she can find. Turns out she finds an abandoned mysterious atelier devoid of the energy it needs, paths to odd pocket dimensions, and a means to revitalize her deteriorated village of Halfane. Oh, and Slade. He's the one actually able to open the atelier, so ain't that convenient. They form a quick dynamic where he's able to open the paths forward while she has the ability to detect mana they need to revitalize alchemy in their childhood home. So they agree to work together since using the atelier is the best chance to solve both of their problems. Now, while there is a major plot point about a strange mist that plagued the village 12 years ago and solving the aftermath as a driving force for Slade at least, the story still feels very focused and contained, which is a much better fit for a series like Atelier. What are they both trying to do? Well, Rias wants to revitalize the village, and Slade wants to find the truth behind a mysterious book left behind by his father. The best way to solve both of them is the same thing, utilizing and learning more about alchemy. Now, I really like this setup. It's not some giant world-ending threat, but a more personal story about growth with a bit of intrigue behind it, enough to get you interested. I'd like to learn what happened with the mist and how it ties into everything else. Sure, sounds interesting. And it helps how I like the cast this time around as well. Rias is peppy and spunky, Slade is more level-headed, nothing out of the ordinary, but they at least feel like fast friends. When you start finding fairies to help out in town, it's really cute for Rias to act like a school teacher towards them. Slade doesn't have a lot going on. It feels like his personality is just being a foil to Rias. Maybe I'd see more character from him late in the game, or if I picked him as the protagonist, but he's just alright, and you know what, I'm fine with that. I do at least find them appealing as a pair, so it's weird they aren't the namesake on the cover. Atelier, Rias, and Slade. Let me know if that sounds better than the actual title. For what it's worth, Resna is in the game. She isn't playable, but she's here. The rest of your party and several NPCs consist of characters from other Atelier games. The first one we meet is Aisha, so I'm obligated to give this game at least a 9 out of 10. Your other party members are protagonists from each sub-series between Iris and Ryza. There's Raze, who's noticeably less moody than in his own game, Wilbel, who's in her original design and still very bad at hiding she's a witch, and later on you get Sophie and Totri. And her inclusion means I'm obligated to give this game at most a 2 out of 10. This is unacceptable. Now, on one hand, this means you get to interact with some fan favorite characters, and Totri, but on the other, I imagine people will be kind of lost if they haven't played their original games, which is especially hard for Ray, seeing as his game isn't even available to purchase these days, and some characters you find later on don't even have their games available in English officially. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword we have here. And yes, that was a pun. It's nice they're here, and I don't imagine it would be a worse game if you lacked context, but I get the feeling they came to this world after the events of their respective games, so I don't think there's going to be a whole lot going on. Then again, it isn't like Atelier games are renowned for amazing character arcs, so I'm probably just thinking about it too much. Wait, Ray's actually had— dang it, Gus, just re-release Manakemia 1 and 2, please. Look, whether you've played the other games or not, I think it's fine. It keeps up the cozy character interaction focus of prior games, sans Yumiya, so having history with the series is really more of a bonus. Once you get into the rhythm of gameplay and you like that rhythm, that's what you're here for. Centering on the main village of Halfane, which is tied to Rias' shop, you can sell items and get extra money. These items are obtained either through synthesis or going into dimensional paths, which are little pocket areas filled with monsters and ingredients. Once you've gotten some money, you can invest it into the village, which opens up new stores to give you more recipes and easier access to ingredients. And you use those to make better and better or different items so you can accomplish requests and do better during exploration. As all things should be for the series, it all ties back to alchemy. And thank Alton Brown, the alchemy is much better than it has been lately. Each ingredient has 2 colors, you chain them end to end, and then have the chance to add more to spice things up, like topping a cupcake with bits of a candy bar. Except in this case, the cupcakes are bombs, and the candy bar is a piece of monster corpse that will make it an even better bomb. And then you can use that better bomb to kill monsters to find things and make even better bombs. Plus, I'm sure someone in town will want those bombs, and it isn't your job to question why. This cycle right here, this is what I and so many other series fans are looking for from Atelier. It's satisfying and rhythmic, cozy and cascading, approachable, and full of possibilities. I seriously spent around 15 minutes just making new recipes with the recipe tree, and it was more fun than my entire time playing Yumiya. I'm not lying. I like this a lot. I think if you're willing to give it a try, it would work well enough as an entry point. You know, it'd be really weird from the everything about this game, but if you look at the entries like Aisha, Sophie, and even something like Mirudu as something that might be up your alley, it's worth trying Red White. It has a bunch of moving parts, but they're all small parts shifting around in unison. Alright, I guess one of those is also combat. It's turn-based again, which I greatly prefer over the real-time humble-de-jumble of the last few games. Look, if you like Yumiya, that's fine, but I hate JRPGs where the combat is just constant flash and noise, so it's nice to go back to turn-based. It's centering a bunch of mechanics around party formation. You have front and back rows, and using the multi-action command lets you perform multiple actions while swapping characters from one row to the other. Lets characters get extra damage and maybe protect someone with low health, swap out for someone with an elemental advantage. It's a nice mechanic. After that, I feel like they put in more bells and whistles than they strictly needed. On top of what I just described, there are follow-up attacks and item combos and random events on certain turns and whatever this doohickey down here is, and I'm sure I'm missing something. Also, there's the good old guard breaking that I don't think I ever did outside of the tutorial for it. Maybe that means the game is too easy or I was accidentally power leveling. I'm not sure. It isn't like the older games didn't try to be flashy, but Red White just kept stacking things up, and I don't hate them, but like many games pushing flashiness over focus, they could have trimmed out one mechanic and spent the time refining the others. Still, the combat's perfectly alright, I enjoyed it well enough. It's just one more small gear in the lovely little machine that is the classic Atelier gameplay loop. What makes it even better is how Halfame is presented. This small little dilapidated village with rundown buildings and little ramshackle shops is very endearing, just a small collective of people trying their best to improve upon a bad situation. I know the narratives of these games don't tend to be very deep, but this bit of mechanical storytelling, even if I'm probably overthinking it, is one of the things I love about this series that I don't think they've been doing well over the last few entries. These games are at their best when they're about people, going about their days and making things better bit by bit. It's a familiar, cozy atmosphere within a fantastical world that feels far more relatable at a base level than a bad thing happened that affected everyone, and also super evil demons are gonna kill the planet or something. Don't worry, Wild Arms, I'm not talking about you. I love you. Mwah. And that's not to say those kinds of plots are inherently bad, nor would you be wrong for liking them. But for me, when it comes to Atelier at the very least, I think they're best when I can walk to the center of town, look around and think, I wonder what this is gonna look like when I'm done. Now, of course, not every game in the series is like that. My favorite is still Aisha, and I love it for different reasons. But for what Red White is going for, namely being a budget bonus game thrown together from reused assets to serve fans built up throughout most of the series, it's pretty solid. I don't have as much to say about this as I did for Yumiya, partially because it's a smaller title anyway, and also because I don't have that many issues with it I feel need to be expanded upon. I like this game, it's nice that they made it, but it does make me concerned in a different way than the last few entries. I've been worried about how Gust is pushing Atelier to be for a while now, for a number of reasons I'd rather not delve into for this review. When Yumiya was making the rounds earlier this year and I played it, I found myself disappointed and sad at a series with a unique identity forgoing what made it special for the sake of trying to appease everybody else, when ideally they should have used the funds to just make what they were good at even better. Not throw out basically everything and do the stuff everybody else was already doing. They tried doing that in the PS2 era with the Irish trilogy, and while those games have their appeal, I don't think they're even close to the same level as most of the other sub-series like Dusk, Mysterious, Arland, or even Secret. Yeah, remember, that's what Rise's trilogy is technically supposed to be called, but no one ever calls it that. Yumiya, while it seems to have done relatively well for them, almost feels like something from a totally different series, and I'm sure the next game in that sub-series will follow suit. I mean, I'm still gonna try it, I'll give it a fair shot, but we'll see when it gets here. The thing is, if it wasn't called Atelier, I probably wouldn't have had as many issues with it. A name can do a lot when giving something a chance. There's history and preference and all that jive, and Red White, despite sharing part of its name with a gacha game led by a completely different character and not being similar in any way, does a much better job at being what the series excels at. It's focused, cute, satisfying, cozy, and if that's not your bag, well, it's not like you're short of other options. I'm glad Gus decided to make this game. It's certainly better than just leaving fans of the older style out in the cold. They didn't have to do this, but they did, and that's worth celebrating. Maybe this is the plan going forward, use most of the budget to make the bigger, flashier mainline titles and use a smaller budget for little in-between projects, keeping in line with the series' classic formula. I'd certainly be okay with that. I just worry Red White, which is probably being used as the test subject to see if that works, won't make enough profit in the eyes of whoever makes the decisions at Gust or Koei to warrant continuing this pattern. Only time will tell, but it certainly feels like they aren't pushing it as much as with Yumiya, which makes sense. You know, that game had a much higher investment and they were trying to sell it to as many people as possible. Well, this is definitely for the niche crowd. I can't help but be concerned. I'm just paranoid like that. We'll just have to see what happens in the future. But as for right now, go and play Red White. It's pretty good. And they certainly won't make more like it without enough support. Atelier Resleriana, the Red Alchemist, and the White Guardian might have a really awful, horrible, no good, very bad title, but I say it's worth giving a shot. In terms of entry points to the series, it doesn't stack up to the likes of Sophie or Ryza, but it's still a fun and approachable, cozy RPG if that's what you're in the market for. And if you're already a fan of the series, you get bonus points for knowing old characters, so that's fun. It's nothing crazy, but it's a strong title that's sure to satisfy established fans, and many new ones if you're willing to give it a try. It's deeper than it needs to be, charming through and through, and a great return to form after the rapid experimentation of the last few games. Now, if you excuse me, I'm just gonna go play more of it. Have a nice day.